Alright guys, so today we are going to learn to use our pen tool to make selections. And our pen tool is, in my opinion, the go-to tool to use to make selections because it makes nice clean selections, unlike the magnetic lasso and lasso tools, which give us little break up at the edge of our pixels. Sometimes it's not really a clean selection tool as a pen tool, but really and truly the pen tool is mainly to draw shapes and parts and stuff. It's really designed like that initially, but we use it to mask and create masks in Photoshop, right? So with the pen tool selected, I'm going to select path. Now if we draw a shape, right, first off let's duplicate this layer. Now if we draw a shape, we will get a shape with a fill. That is not what we want, because as we go around this object, it'll actually hinder us with the visibility of the selection. So ideally what we want is just the path. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to first off get a nice zoom in, and I'm going to really try and select this car. So I would go and use the pen tool and click and drag. Now as you click and drag, you notice that the handles are automatically created. Now these handles actually determine where the curve wants to go. So in this case the curve wants to go in this direction. Now that is not ideal because it'll create a bad selection here, which would let's do it and you'll see. So if I click here, you notice it curves in and then comes back out. Alright, let me zoom in to show you. Right, that is not what we want, because the curve is going in this direction. What we could do is hold Alt on the keyboard and move the handle to point in the direction where we want this curve to go. So in this case I want it to go in here, and now I can zoom out just to see the curve of the car. This way, and just keep going like this. And once I use my handles by hitting Alt, I will be able to determine where to put my anchor points, right? So I could go around side mirrors, and as you can see, you can quickly just make a selection. Now it is not as fast as the magnetic lasso, however it gives you a cleaner cut, right? So you could fast forward this part, but I'm going to take my time just to show you the technique involved in doing it. So if you feel comfortable, you could go ahead and fast forward this section, because what we're doing is just making a path around the car itself, right? Now in this case, the advantage that we have here is that the magnetic lasso would have picked up this white area here because of the similarity in the pixels, and that would have been some problems for us. So the pen tool actually allows us to make curves however we want, and basically bend the selection to whichever way you fancy, right? So we could just look at the image and just trace it out using the pen tool. Now the pen tool is also found in Illustrator, InDesign, and most of the, if not all, the Adobe Creative Suite programs. Now I'm almost complete with making the selection, and as you can see I took my time, and you know what, I'm gonna leave this error here and we'll come back to it, so that way I'll show you how to fix it. Alright, so we could just draw around this spoiler here. Just trace it. I'm going to leave that also. Now it's difficult here because the shadow and the front of this car is almost the same color, but I guess you could tell the difference if you really watch it. But that's alright, because we'll, at the end of this, we'll add back the shadow to the vehicle, right? Okay, I think, yeah. So I came back around and I completed the path. Now, where was the error we made? I think it was right there. It is. So this part here is an error. So what we could do is go back to our pen tool and just click on the part and add an anchor point. Now the anchor point is added, and I could just go to the direct selection tool, or with the pen tool selected, hold down Control, and that way I could select the anchor point and then pull it in closer to my selections. And now I can just adjust the handles with the white arrow again, right? So that way we could get our selection going. Right now we have a part, but it's not a selection because there's no matching ants, right? And to get the matching ants, we have to go to path and hold down Control, and we'll get this little dotted box, or use the drop down menu here and say make selection, or we could right click and say make selection. So any one of these would work. The fastest way is just to work on Control click, and we make a selection of the car. Once we make a selection of the car, we can now go ahead and mask it, and we remove that. And that is how quickly we mask the layer. Right now we could go ahead now and move this object around our canvas because it's masked, or even duplicate it into a new let's say we create a letter size flyer or something, or just we could create a background image. But anyway, let's go with a letter size and hit create, and now we could just go ahead and duplicate this layer with our drop down menu, duplicate layer, and call it car. And our destination would be Untitled 1, because Untitled 1 is the name of our letter size document. And we can now drop it in here and, you know, have it like this. Now, as I said before, we could add back the shadow by using our paintbrush. So to add back the shadow, we would add a new layer, call it shadow, and in this case we could make it go below the car because we want the car on top of the shadow itself. Go to our paintbrush, and to select the color that we want, we know that it was close to this black, so we will just go to the eyedropper tool, or we could just hold Alt on the keyboard to sample the color that we want. Use the parentheses, left or right, left in this case, to make the brush size bigger or smaller. Left is to make it smaller, right is to make it bigger. Make sure the hardness is down so we'll get a soft brush, and we could just paint. Right, make it bigger, and we could paint under it, so that way we could just get a little bleed on the off on the shadow. Right. Whoops, that looks, yeah. Right, so there you have it. We just masked with our pen tool, and we added a shadow with our paintbrush, and we could start, you know, adding different elements with it. So you could see Honda, I guess it's a Honda, and resize this text like this, you know, something like that, whatever. Yeah, and that's it. That's how we make a selection by using our pen tool. So I'll see you in the next one.